Huge Tesla news has just been confirmed, and even the big Tesla bulls were caught off guard with them saying, wow, wasn't sure if they would be able to pull this off, but this is huge. And the stock jumped on this news, and if you like it, click the like button right now and subscribe. The new administration's team has just told advisors that they are planning to make a federal framework for fully self-driving vehicles one of the Transportation Department's priorities, easing US rules for self-driving cars, making FSD deployment later much easier nationwide. Even James admits that this is pretty big, because this will of course greatly facilitate the robotaxi business model, which Tesla is uniquely positioned to take advantage of. I find Dylan Lubis to be pretty accurate in terms of describing his FSD experience. I haven't seen him overhype FSD before, and look at what he's saying right now. This latest version, which he just got and tested, is the biggest improvement since the switch to V12, and he agrees with that assessment from his personal experience. This is good. And now with the new administration, maybe they will also take a look at rolling stops. Basically, if you are on FSD and if you encounter a stop sign, you will stop twice, once at the stop line and then one more time again once you have full visibility of your surroundings. Not every single stop sort of works like that, but many, especially at least here in Vancouver, Canada, you don't have full visibility at the stop line usually. And even when you do, you come to a full stop, it's so annoying to everyone. I can literally sometimes see people getting frustrated behind me when FSD does this, especially if it's a double stop. Oh, that annoys people behind me. And then Elon Musk confirmed more big news by announcing this on his X account by replying to this post. Been testing the latest FSD version on highway and city streets, and this is the best build I have experienced. Safe to say it performs better than the average human. Cool. V13 will be another 5 to 10 times better in miles between interventions. If that actually comes to fruition, that is massive news. However, Elon Musk has made similar comments before about previous versions, and these were point releases. So this one, though, is a completely new version, V13. It's not a point release, so I am quite a bit more inclined to believe that in this case, he's much more likely to actually have an accurate prediction of what's going to happen. Another reason that makes me believe Elon Musk a little bit more this time is because the Tesla team itself is a lot more bullish about FSD, making very specific predictions. For example, right now, Tesla is sort of basically saying that they expect FSD to be safer than people from the second quarter of 2025. Of course, I expect a delay, but when Tesla stands behind a prediction, and it's not just Elon Musk, I have found that these predictions have more merit behind them, as in they're more likely to come to fruition. And look at what FSD can already do. This is a pretty challenging environment. I mean, right now it was a bit easier, and then that person started walking, and that made it definitely harder. And from my experience, this is a pretty normal thing with FSD. It's not something where when my vehicle does it, where I go like, oh my God, it has never done that. I would not expect it to do it. It usually does it right. Not always. Sometimes during these situations, I of course pay a lot more attention. Wow, okay. Now that was impressive. Did you see that bicycle just coming out of nowhere? Whoa, that was pretty impressive. This clip is full of impressive clips like that, by the way. It just goes nonstop like this for 3.5 minutes. Pretty cool. A lot of these, like this one, for example, this is definitely pretty impressive. You let the buzz go, the vehicle knows, hey, you gotta let this buzz go, and only then you can go. Pretty good. Yeah, it's full of pretty good clips in this video. FSD is going to be solved. It's just a matter of time. It's going to be safer than human driving, and if you are not in Tesla stock, you will miss out on huge gains. Exactly when will this happen? That's difficult to predict, but I know it is going to happen, and until that happens, I'm definitely staying in Tesla stock, and even after that happens, there's still going to be plenty of time to reap the rewards from Tesla stock, although the biggest gains I believe will be then the people start to find out, wait, it is safer, right? What? Let me buy some Tesla stock. And now the more Tesla talks about the Tesla bot and the more announcements they make about it in terms of improvements and everything, I'm getting a lot more bullish about that too. Whoa, Elon Musk has sort of made an announcement here, not directly but indirectly. This is actually pretty big news. Elon Musk responded with, okay, we need big Teslas for big families. This has gotten a lot of Tesla stock investors really excited. She's even using the argument that we need more babies. So you know, that's definitely going to work on Elon Musk. Hey, we need bigger cars because we need more babies. We need to put the babies somewhere. And Tesla doesn't have really big vehicles, not yet. Like, make an actual affordable 3-row SUV. And the Robovan as Elon Musk likes to call it, that's years and years away. And it's really big, so that's not gonna hang out in your parking lot. That's gonna be used for public transportation and maybe transporting some goods. Definitely not by a family with 4 or 5 kids. Oh, and Elon Musk has made more announcements here. The Tesla Robovan is in development, but some other things are in development too. I'm pretty sure he's referring to something that has not been announced yet. Elon Musk is laughing at this. I think it's time to do this. Tesla is going out of business as former GM executive Bob Lutz. This was 7 years ago, by the way. That didn't age well, did it? It's more like GM is going out of business because their EV initiatives are not working out for them, especially with the $7,500 EV tax credit going away. That's going to make it even harder for them. The dirty Tesla Keanu is saying that Elon Musk has failed at this. He has failed to go out of business repeatedly. That's the biggest failure of Elon Musk. I agree. Check this out. This got Sawyer Merritt shocked. A positive Tesla article from LA's Times. Russ Mitchell. Tesla is profitable, they write, and the EV business at the traditional automakers as yet is not. Taking away buyer credits would hurt them more than it would hurt Tesla. Musk has Trump's ear, and that could help Tesla. Other EV makers, maybe not so much. This is what I've been telling all of you. The rumor is this reporter has been taken to the hospital for a minor stroke after publishing this. This could be one massive reason why Elon Musk decided not to pursue the Giga Mexico factory. During the campaign, President-elect said that he would impose tariffs of 200% or more on vehicle imports from Mexico and has suggested placing increased duties on vehicles from Europe and Asia. However, for him to do this, he would need to repeal the 2020 United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, which actually prohibits the leverage of tariffs on imported goods as long as they come from one of these countries. So he would need action from Congress, but it's now controlled by Republicans, so it's certainly possible. But given that American automakers make quite a few vehicles in Mexico, how likely is this to happen? I don't see it as likely, but is it possible? Sure. If it does happen though, this would greatly benefit Tesla because Tesla currently has so much manufacturing in the US. And with so much positive news about Tesla, Brian Wong, who is a fundamental analyst, he's predicting that Tesla is going to hit $450 by February and $1,000 by the end of 2025. I have a prediction that Tesla stock is going to $1,000 and then later well beyond that. And I'm going to stay in Tesla stock until I hit my milestones at least. And then even after that, I will probably stay in Tesla stock for quite a bit longer because Elon Musk just keeps coming up with new opportunities for Tesla. And it's just not exactly the smartest thing to bet against Elon Musk because if you are not in Tesla stock, indirectly you are sort of betting against Elon Musk. Here's another stock astrologist, a technical analyst, who says that Tesla stock is likely to go to $400 in December. And you know Ron Barron, the guy that is extremely bullish on Tesla stock, he's a multi-billionaire, averages 15% returns each year during his 30-year career. This woman is a Tesla portfolio manager who, on Ron Barron's advice, bought Tesla in 2013. In the beginning of 2024, she called this year the year of Tesla energy and never bought the stalling EV story. She turned out to be right, and as another person who we can start following. As expected, we are seeing more Tesla stock price target increases. RBC Capital raises Tesla's stock price target to $313, up from $249. Still below where Tesla stock is currently, though. This is specifically Tom Narayan, who was one of the first Wall Street analysts to actually buy into Tesla's FSD future. But then later he sort of started to backtrack a little bit on that. He's sort of back now, I guess, but with a Tesla stock price target below where the current price is, this is not gonna look good in the future. Anyway, he says that the sessions which were held at Giga Texas for Wall Street, where he participated, this gave them an increase in confidence in Tesla's ability to achieve its autonomy goals and highlighted the comparative advantage it has over both legacy ICE and EV makers in building cars. Duh, this has been obvious for forever now. Ron Barron has been in the news lately. He says, invest for the long term. That's the idea. He's now 81 years old, by the way. So he's been averaging these 15% returns from being 50 to 81 now. Just finding great businesses and not selling is basically the key. I'm not selling any Tesla stock. I just buy when I have money. And I often hear things like, oh, because that person's a fund manager, he cannot have more than 10% of Tesla in his portfolio. They usually do that because they want to justify their fees because, you know, if half or 75% of their portfolio was in Tesla stock, what do you need them for? You can just buy Tesla stock directly and pay lower fees. But people that actually want to maximize your returns, like Ron Barron, they have a different strategy. So they bought Tesla shares in 2014, and the stake is now about a third of the fund's assets. A third, about 33%, that would mean. And the fund's second largest position is Musk's SpaceX. And this guy is a multi-billionaire. He's a smart guy. And yet he's staying in Tesla stock. In a decade, he's predicting that Tesla stock is going to a $5 trillion market cap valuation. Currently, it's at about $1 trillion valuation. So that's roughly a 5x. And that $5 trillion valuation is without Optimus, just the current business plan. Elon thinks that Tesla could hit $30 trillion in the long term. The $5 trillion valuation, that's definitely happening. That's my personal opinion, not financial advice. But it's also Ron Barron's opinion. And Ron Barron is a financial advisor. So him saying Tesla stock is going to a $5 trillion market cap valuation, 5xing in a decade, that is practically financial advice from him. Elon Musk also commented on this from Ron Barron. Ron Barron says, I don't feel like a Democrat anymore. I think the Democratic Party has been taking over unions, UAW, for example. They had an EV summit at the White House a few years ago. The leading people in electric cars were invited, but Musk was not invited eventually, although initially he was actually, which is sort of quite a bit worse than not inviting you at all. You invite the person, like, nah, you can't come in here. No. And then the person that was praised was Mary Barr, supposedly. She's leading the EV revolution to bankruptcy, basically. Elon Musk agrees with everything that Ron Barron said here. Ron Barron here is continuing to make sense. I think that if someone is really talented and they work really hard, someone like Elon Musk, for example, they should get the benefit from that instead of, you know, the $50 billion compensation package being taken away from him. But the policies of this party is if someone's not doing well, they say, okay, we'll lift you up and we're going to take away someone like, you know, Elon Musk's $50 billion compensation package. I'm fine about giving people opportunity. I'm not fine about taking something from someone who's worked really hard and giving it to someone else. So he believes in meritocracy just like Elon Musk and just like I do. And if Elon Musk is right and Tesla does sit a $30 trillion valuation, which would be a 30x from here, Tesla stock would be trading at basically about $10,000 per share, very roughly speaking. That would be quite incredible. But if he is right, he should be rewarded. The stock price is the same as it was 3 years ago. No way I'm selling Tesla. He believes that Elon Musk is likely right about Tesla exploding and possibly going all the way up to $30 trillion in market cap. Eventually, when we look at Tesla's price of the stock 20 years from now, even 10 years from now, we're gonna look back like, whoa, that was crazy. And we stuck with it, we were patient, and now we are rewarded because we all live in a meritocracy, and that's when your efforts are rewarded instead of everything being taken away from you. Unlike, for example, in the Soviet Union, where both of my parents were born. My parents were born in the Baltic States, which were occupied at that time by the Soviet Union. And during that time, there was no way to get rich. There was no meritocracy, basically. There was absolutely no incentive to work actually really hard and to get ahead. Elon Musk certainly appreciates the love from Ron Barron. He says he's a real mensch. I love him. And I certainly share the sentiment with Ron Barron that there's no way that any of us here are selling any Tesla stock. So think about how much progress Tesla has made in the last 3 years, and yet the stock hasn't budged really. The Tesla energy business is scaling. Tesla's FSD software has gotten much better. I can actually sit in the vehicle now, not a new vehicle even, and it can drive me around the city with me just having to supervise here and there occasionally. 3 years ago, some of us understood it, but now we can actually see it in front of our eyes happening. It's been a long time since I have seen Gary Black get this much heat from the Tesla stock community, so let's dive into this. He explains that his general philosophy is to buy low and sell high. Accordingly, we trimmed some of our Tesla position this week at $351 after Tesla increased by 150% off its April bottom. He posted this yesterday, that's why he said this week. As disciplined growth investors, we have to like Tesla less at 350 than we did at 140 since the relative upside downside is less favorable. Here's the thing though, Gary Black on April 7th in his FFLS fund, which is not his main fund, but it's one of his funds, he sold his entire Tesla stock position in that fund around April 7th, which for a brief period of time actually turned out to be genius. Look at this dip. Can you see that? Yep, there was a dip. It was a tiny dip, but in a very, very short term, it was definitely worth it. But was it worth it until now? Tesla stock basically doubled since the entire Tesla stock position has been sold in that specific fund. And by the way, I like Gary. He provides great insight in terms of how the Wall Street people think. So I really appreciate all of the insight from Gary Black. But he definitely has made some moves, which I disagree with. Like, for example, on October 15th, Gary Black sold Tesla, bought Rivian. Here's how Rivian has been doing from then to now, minus 47%. Ouch. It's one thing if a company led by Elon Musk is down 47%, that's generally a buying opportunity, but when a startup that has not made any profit at all, and when it's led by someone who hasn't done the impossible over and over again, yeah, I don't see that as a buying opportunity. Definitely not. And just now, actually, Gary Black has sold all of his Rivian stock. And I'm not talking about one of his smaller funds. I'm talking about his main fund. He doesn't have any Rivian anymore. He still has 4.1% in his main fund in Tesla stock. Gary made this long post. I'm definitely not going through the whole thing, but he's basically saying that he has been cautious about Tesla stock, and recently he has been right. To use his words specifically, we have credibility for being cautiously bullish on Tesla over the past 2 years. Oh, and we have a big disagreement here. A good example is the potential loss of the $7,500 EV credit, which is clearly bad for Tesla since analysts will reduce their out-year earnings estimates as US EV adoption slows and re-rate Tesla's PE lower as expected growth rates slow. And the post does not end here. It continues for a while. He's also defending Ross Gerber, James, and Troy. I can understand and sort of defend to some degree James and Troy, knowing that Troy is not even a Tesla stock investor. He just looks at data and deliveries, and that's all he does. James is not a long-term investor, so obviously he will have a different perspective. And Ross, well, he wanted to be on the Tesla board. And after that, yeah, he wasn't on the Tesla board. He's clearly very against Elon's politics. I cannot say that I can defend Ross Gerber here. Definitely not. I do like hearing everyone's stories, and that helps me sharpen my arguments better. But listening to Ross Gerber about Tesla stock, that has not been helpful, roughly from when he tried to become a Tesla board member. Here's another big disagreement I have with Gary Black. Those who believe killing the $7,500 EV credit is good for Tesla are the same investors who incorrectly believed Tesla cutting EV prices in 2022, 2023 was good for Tesla. Cutting EV prices in 2022 and 2023 caused Tesla's EPS power to decline by 45% since Tesla got little or no incremental volume from the price cuts. The same erroneous thinking applies to loss of the EV credits. It's more impactful to Tesla since the EV credits are offered on 95% of Tesla's US business. EVs are still a small percentage of legacy autos businesses. The question is, for how long? The answer to that is probably for quite a while. Why? Because they can't make them profitably. Every EV that they sell, they lose money on it. Tesla started doing massive price cuts on its vehicles on January 6th of 2023, which is basically exactly when Tesla reached its bottom at $113 per share. And there were more cuts, and Tesla just rallied, skyrocketing quickly, up 74%, and now we are up since then 193%. Obviously, cutting prices didn't work, says the market. in the short term, the stock market gets way too emotional, but in the long term, it actually prices assets pretty well. Gary Black, though, here is not agreeing with the price cuts being a benefit to Tesla when they started happening. I agree with Farzad, not with Gary here. Cutting prices was good for Tesla. It was good for long-term competitive positioning from a pricing power perspective, because a lot of these EV companies started backing out from the business because now their losses started to really accelerate. Literally look around. Does anyone come anywhere close to value for dollars when it comes to Tesla vehicles? Gary says you're drinking way too much of the Kool-Aid, Farzad. Wait. I'm just arguing it's bad for Tesla stock, specifically the stock. The numbers, when I look at the stock price, that doesn't support it. Since it makes Teslas more expensive relative to ICE vehicles, Wall Street will cut 2030 Tesla volume and earnings estimates versus what we previously expected and reduce the PE to reflect lower growth. I would expect a 15 to 20% drop in stock price due to his 2030 EPS reduction versus current estimates if this passes and there is nothing to replace it. He's talking about the regulatory credits, but specifically coming back to the price, it's up. Often, Gary Black makes some sensible arguments. These ones, I disagree extremely strongly with these arguments that he's making. But the thing is, Gary Black doesn't really believe in FSD, and I believe that Tesla will definitely solve FSD, make it safer than human driving, and that will be one of the big drivers of Tesla's stock price. He doesn't believe in that, so in some way, his arguments to some degree, if you believe that FSD is never going to be really solved, that FSD is not going to be dominated by Tesla specifically, in that case, maybe there's some basis for believing what Gary Black believes in. But to me specifically, when I look at this and see Gary Black think like this, to me, this is an opportunity, because this means most of Wall Street also thinks like this, because Gary Black usually is, among Wall Street analysts, one of the biggest bulls out there. So if he thinks like that, the rest of Wall Street, most of it, thinks like this as well, meaning there's such a big opportunity that still remains for us Tesla stock investors who are just retail investors. If you're speaking about the EV tax credit specifically, in Q1 of 2019, Tesla lost the EV tax credit. Sales dropped from 90,000 units delivered to just 60,000 later. Obviously, the stock has never recovered, because back then it was trading at $12.34 per share. And clearly, if you see this chart, if you look closely, maybe put your reading glasses on if you can't see it, but there's definitely a dip here. I know it's really hard to see the dip, so let me actually do something to make it obvious. See, right here, everything just started going so badly for Tesla, the stock. Yeah, I mean, the bears, this is how bears see Tesla, basically. Someone has flipped their screens and put a mirror effect on it. And Gary Black actually responded to this post, and I read it, and I'm flabbergasted, actually. Gary says, my issue is some folks argue that elimination of the EV credit will devastate legacy auto. The EV credit barely impacts legacy auto volumes today, so how can losing it devastate them? I'm literally flabbergasted. It's because the future is EVs. All vehicles, pretty much, give it a decade or more, all of them are going to be EVs. If you cannot make EVs profitably, will you be in business? While Tesla makes a huge profit making every single EV, selling them at very cheap prices. This is like 2006. Oh, how can a company that makes feature phones, not smartphones, how can they be devastated by something like an iPhone? I mean, these companies make so much money selling feature phones. How is it possible that these companies would be devastated by not being able to sell smartphones profitably? Blockbuster didn't make money from streaming, so how can the transition to streaming be really bad for them if they are not making any money from streaming and they have no plans really to make any money from streaming? Because we are making so much money renting out physical movies. It's been a while since someone from Wall Street has flabbergasted me this much. Oh, well, this is also not really accurate either. It was just a few years ago when Tesla was lobbying for this tax credit, the $7,500 tax credit. Now that Elon doesn't want it, as he's willing to slow down the entire US EV industry in favor of Tesla coming on top in a few years, it's also Tesla's policy. Oh wait, he actually is making sense because he is admitting that this will put Tesla at the top. And here was official recommendation from Elon Musk about these tax credits. This is from a few years ago.
We don't need the $7,500 tax credit. I would say, honestly, I would just can this whole bill. Don't pass it. That's my recommendation.
But then Fred actually responds to this post from Jeff. Look at my tweet again. I said Tesla was lobbying for it, not Elon. Elon was already pandering to the right at that point, and he was indeed communicating that, but that's not the recommendation Tesla submitted. Oh, you mean Tesla wanted to get that credit because the wording in the language was that only the automakers that made EVs using union labor would get the tax credit, excluding Tesla. So of course, in that case, Tesla would want to be included knowing that this bill is going to pass. So if you suggest, oh, you know what, don't pass it, they will then say, oh, you know what, you're asking us not to pass it, so we'll just exclude you, but only you, and we'll include all the labor unions in this tax credit. Now, that would be sort of corrupt for the government to do, but if Tesla itself is telling them to exclude Tesla, okay, well, then you couldn't really call it sort of corruption. If you recall, some of these companies really lobbied hard and spent a lot of money to have only them included. Luckily, that didn't work, and corruption, in this case, failed. And if you have been following Elon Musk for a decade, you clearly know that overall, Elon's stance is get rid of all subsidies, including for gas and oil. Make it an even playing field. Right now, the gas and oil industry, it gets so much in subsidies, but Elon just wants everything to be a level playing field, which would include getting rid of subsidies for EVs, but also for oil and gas. Here's one thing to think about the tax credit though. If they are going to kill it, likely they wouldn't just kill it immediately. There would be a period of time where you can still get it, and that would probably create a big rush of people buying EVs, getting the subsidy. And speaking about the long term, not the short term. Short term, obviously, removing the subsidies is a bad thing for Tesla. But in the long term, I do believe it's bullish. And most of the investors also believe that it's bullish. In fact, more than twice as many investors believe it's a bullish thing instead of that being bearish. And specifically, this is talking about long term. But I think for some people, long term means 2 years, and for other people, it means 10 years. So really, it would have been a better poll if Sawyer said, let's say 10 years from now, if you look back to these tax credits, removing them, was it bullish or bearish for Tesla? I believe the answer to that is it would be bullish, because companies other than Tesla who lose money selling EVs today will scale back EV production, kill new EV plans, focus more on ICE out of desperation, and ultimately go bankrupt sooner if they can't scale production of compelling, profitable EVs, which Tesla can already successfully, profitably do. And that's the only company that can do that in the whole world, says Elon Musk. He said that on the earnings call. And so if you go to the supermarket and there's only one brand of cereal to buy, guess what you're buying? You're buying Tesla's cereal. And literally this year, Elon said, take away the subsidies. It will only help Tesla also remove subsidies from all industries. Here's some more good news for Elon Musk. The frivolous lawsuit against Elon Musk that alleged that he rigged Dogecoin is finally ending as investors in the cryptocurrency withdraw their appeal from an August 29th dismissal of their case. We are also seeing Elon Musk spending a lot of time with President-elect. You can see Elon right there behind the president. I also really like this one. Elon Musk is looking at his phone, scrolling, and then cracking up looking at the memes. Elon also met with the president of Argentina together with the president-elect. Here's some actually pretty big and important news. Tesla will use XAI's Memphis supercomputer for FSD training, and XAI is raising another $6 billion to buy more chips. Should be Tesla giving the money to XAI and buying some XAI shares. And I have been a big proponent of Tesla investing into XAI when the valuation was still very small. I believe the valuation is still pretty good, and Tesla should still invest into XAI. And it's not just me. Dylan Loomis from Electrified also says, Tesla, please lock in a stake ASAP. Officially, XAI is now valued at $50 billion post-money. Oh, this is great for Elon Musk and us Tesla stock investors. President-elect just chose Brendan Carr, who has been very pro-Elon Musk, as a new chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, FCC. And this is going to be big. Within the next 48 hours, SpaceX is set to break a new 48-hour launch record by launching launching 4 rockets, including Starship from Texas, Florida, and California. This is twice as many launches as Europe has completed throughout all of 2024. How embarrassing. Speaking of embarrassing, General Motors is laying off nearly 1,000 workers worldwide, mostly in the US. It wouldn't be embarrassing if they were already making profits with EVs, but they're not, so their future is at stake. Eventually, Tesla stock is going to $1,000 per share. My name is Matt Posius, and I will see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you so much for watching.